Booktube! Today I'm doing the breakfast book tag, which was first created by Trithardt, and I was tagged by Breakeven Books, so I will leave both of their channels in the description. But the basic gist of this tag is that you are given prompts correlating with everyday breakfast foods, and you have to recommend books based off of those prompts, so it should be a lot of fun. Before I start this video, there are links to sign and donate, and just do everything you can to educate yourself about the Black Lives Matter movement in the description, so please go check that out because that is more important than this video could ever be. But without further ado, let's get on into the video. The first food is coffee, and the prompt is hot but not scalding. And I think this prompt is originally made for a romance book, but I am going to just go for a book that was really good, but just didn't have that extra spice to get it to an all-time favorite. And so I'm going to go with The Book Thief by Markus Zusak. This book is set in 1939 during Nazi Germany and is about our protagonist Liesel Memminger. And while she's at her brother's gravesite, she finds and steals this book called The Gravedigger's Handbook, and so starts a career of book thievery for her. With the help of her father, who plays the accordion, she begins to steal everywhere. Nazi burnings, the mayor's library, wherever she could find books, and she slowly but surely becomes more literate. But these are very dangerous times, and when Liesel's foster family has to hide a Jewish man, Liesel's world changes for the worse. This is a book that is just so popular on BookTube, and originally I DNF'd this book, but I always wanted to give it a second try, and so in the month of May, that's exactly what I did. I really enjoyed this book. What originally turned me off in the beginning was the writing style. It's very poetic, and it's hard to get into in the beginning, especially since it is narrated by death. But ultimately, that's what helped me love this story. It was just such a poetic, beautiful, heartbreaking story. And Markus Zusak really does not hold back with developing these characters and making things brutal for them, while also showing us that humanity is so powerful and that stories can change the world. I just love this book for doing that for me. This is a bigger book, but it was one of those bigger books that just flew by. You don't really recognize the length, especially because there are some cartoons and things that relate to the story that are not necessarily all words. It also just really got me into the historical fiction genre, while also really educating me about World War II and what times were like for Jews back then. The next food is bagel, and the prompt to go along with it is a book so good that you could forgive the plot holes. And so I was originally going to go with the Harry Potter series by Emma Watson. That was not funny, was it? I'm going to go with Every Day by David Levithan. When I originally read this book, I absolutely loved it, and I thought it was an all-time favorite. But as I look back upon this book, I realized there are a lot of problems with it. Just some things that I'm just not 100% with. Let's leave it at that. But I still do love the writing style and the characters. They tackled important issues in such a creative way, and the romance element was so different, which made it so good. But if you do not know, this book is about a spirit named A who every day, hence the title, inhabits a different body. He set this rule for himself to just carry on that body's normal stuff, don't really affect anything or change that person's life for the worse, until one day in the body of a girl's boyfriend, he falls in love with that girl, and so he immediately tries to track her down in whichever body he is, and so starts a very weird romance. But the inconsistency I saw with this book, it was never really explained what happened, like the soul, like I don't know what you want to call it, of the person he inhabits. Like, where does that go? Does it like hang in the air and wait for the spirit to move out of its body? I never really understood what happened to the person whose body he was inhabiting, and it wasn't really explained in this book. There is a second book in the series, but I think it's told from the girl's perspective, so I don't really know if we're ever going to get an explanation as to what happens to the body he inhabits. But yeah, not going to go with Harry Potter by Emma Watson, but instead Every Day by David Levithan. The next food is cereal, and the prompt to go along with it is best consumed quickly, and so I'm going to go with Sadie by Courtney Summers. This book is a thriller, and it's actually one of the first YA thrillers I've ever read, and it really just got me into the genre. I have read One of Us Is Lying, but I was just so put off by that ending that I was scared to start another thriller. But this book just completely surprised me, both with the podcast episode and just the realness and gray morality with our protagonist. And just like I think all thrillers, this book flew by. I was the fastest reader in the world turning those pages. And also, it's just a really interesting and compelling story. The writing style is really, really good. And while there were some pages that were just all description and didn't really contribute anything, I still thought overall it was a very, very good story. Especially with the whole Sadie wants to kill the person who killed her sister thing. The next prompt is Toast, and this is a book that got a little dark. So for this one, I'm going to go with Frankly in Love by David Yoon, which is one of my all-time favorites. It was just so good. And if you have not read this book, what are you doing? Just go read this book. But this book is about Frank Lee, hence the title, Frank Lee in Love. And he is stuck between his parents' expectations of who he is and who he will become, namely dating and marrying a Korean girl, and who he really wants to be. When he falls in love with a white girl named Britt Means, didn't see that coming, did you? And so he immediately gets enveloped in this fake dating scheme. So Frank thinks he's got it all figured out because the fake dating scheme is going perfectly to a T until a curveball comes his way and makes him question if he ever knew anything about love at all. Originally, I thought this book was going to be like a rom-com and I wasn't going to like it, but it became an all-time favorite, and that's for a reason. This book got really, really deep at times. There was cancer, there was love, there was family. It really, really got dark sometimes, and I just was not expecting that element coming into this story, but I really, really enjoyed it, and that's really what set it apart. I was loving the writing style. I was loving the blue sprayed edges. Yes. I was biased, but I just loved Frank's perspective. I really related to the story in a big way. That stereotypical, I really did. It's just such a good story, and Frank just grows so much in this book, and all of the other characters do as well, and it's just so interesting to see the character growth while also enveloped in the poetic writing style. I just love this book. The next prompt is Toast, so a book that makes you feel nice and warm, and so I'm going to go with a book that I read very recently in a reading vlog, which I will link to right here, but that is Geekarella by Ashley Poston. You can watch all my thoughts in that reading vlog as I get further and further into this book. I don't give any spoilers, so yeah, go check that video out. But basically, this is a retelling of Cinderella. It is about Ella, who is a geek. And so when she hears that her favorite TV show is doing this cosplay contest in which the winner can win a meeting with the main actors in this TV show and tickets to the first screening of the movie, immediately knows she has to enter. And the second perspective in this book is of that actor who isn't very enjoying this acting role, especially since the fans of this series have just dismissed him as a heartthrob and just a pretty face with abs. And so this book is told in both their perspectives, and I just thought it was really interesting how they met and how this author really adapted the Cinderella story. I think I'm developing a thing for retelling. I loved Cinder, and I loved Geekarella, and I loved the Land of Story series. This one is also an all-time favorite of mine. It was just so well written, with so many great characters and just their dynamics and their conversations. Seeing how everything progressed in such an interesting way was just the icing on the writing. It was just so good. And some of the characters in this book I will always remember, like Sage. She hits harder than just being an annoying boss, let me tell you that. The next food is juice, and so you have to pick your favorite juice, and then pick a book based on the color of it. And so my favorite juice is apple juice. So good. And so I'm going to go with City of Ember by Jeanne Duprat. I read this book in 5th grade. Well, I don't really remember much of it. I do remember enjoying the world, and the magic system was just so developed when I remember reading this. Nothing really stands out to me about the character except their relationship. I remember being a very good friendship and how that really got them through a lot of tough times. But yeah, I don't remember much about this book. The only reason it's here is because it has Ember in the title, and Ember is a shade of red, right? I don't know. The next food is egg tofu scramble, and as there are different ways to make this food, there are different ways to live, and so you have to pick a memoir. And so I'm going to go with the only memoir I have. LeBron's Dream Team. Now I find this interesting because I love basketball, and I haven't met many other readers who love sports along with reading. And I'm not saying that to be like, I'm not like other guys. I'm just saying this is a very interesting memoir to have and recommend in a video, but it's the only memoir I have. Yeah, My last two recommendations have been fire. The next food is fancy pastries, and this is a genre that you don't normally read, but when you do, you love it. So I'm going to go with historical fiction. I already talked about The Book Thief, but some of the other historical fiction books that I've read are The Spy with the Red Balloon by Catherine Law. Does Eleanor Park count? I'm pretty sure it's told in like 1980, right? Yeah, it's told in 1986. Does that count? And that's basically it. So yeah, I don't read historical fiction many times, but when I do, it's always a hit. I don't know why I haven't read many historical fiction, but it just seems like there isn't much in YA, and that just might be stupid, and I might just be blind. So if you have some historical fiction recs that you think I might like, leave them in the comments below. But I haven't read many historical fiction. I really do want to get into the genre, because again, they've always been a banger. When I read them, I just don't read them very much. The next food is mimosa. Getting into brunch territory, name a book you're looking forward to. So I could go with a lot of books on my TBR, but those are all really popular. You guys have probably already heard of them. So I'm going to go with the one that I haven't heard many people talk about, and that is The Gravity of Us by Phil Stamper. All I know about this book is that it's about this journalist who has like thousands and thousands of followers on this online app. And so when his family moves to Houston for his dad's highly publicized NASA mission to Mars, they soon have to become the perfect American family. But when Cal falls in love with Leon, whose mom is also an astronaut, Leon soon becomes Cal's oasis, a safe spot from the rest of the world. And Cal soon begins to suspect that there might be some secrets that are being hidden from both their families and the entire country. And so he has to wonder if finding out these truths will hurt the people most close to him. First of all, this book has some blurbs from some amazing authors. Becky Albertelli, Adam Silvera, Karen McManus, John David Hutchinson, Caleb Roehrig, Julian Winters, Chelsea Sadoti. Like, those are some really popular authors that gave blurbs for this book. And there's a reason they gave positive blurbs. I mean, I've never seen a negative blurb. But I mean, these authors read this book and they gave a blurb. That just makes me really excited for this book. I haven't read many books about space. I've read some books set in space, but never about space. I'm just really excited for the representation in this book, and also just the writing style. I say this all the time, but if the writing style is a hit, I can dismiss most of the novel's deficiencies if the writing style is so good. And just based off the first sentences, because I did do the first sentence challenge, link right here, I really think I'm going to enjoy both the representation in this book, the space aspect, and the writing style. And so this is a book that I am looking forward to. Mimosa. What is mimosa? I've never heard of that in my life. I've never eaten that in my life. What in the world is mimosa? It's a drink composed of sparkling wine and citrus fruit juice. Okay then. The last food is breakfast for dinner. Tell us about something you like to eat for breakfast and about a book of your choice. So something I like to eat for breakfast is cereal, and a book of my choice is another one that I don't hear talked about a lot and I really want to. And that is Down and Across by Arvin Ahmadi. I talked about this in an underrated Rex video, which you can watch right here. So this book is about Scott Ferdowski. With college applications looming, he does what any stressed teenager would do and runs away to Washington, D.C., where he immediately gets enveloped in this world of crosswords and asking girls to date him at the zoo for dares. And what Scott wants to do is find out about this thing called grit. The reason he goes to Washington, D.C. is to meet this famous psychologist who he thinks knows a lot about grit. This adventure eventually becomes way more than that. And I just loved the writing style, the characters in this book. It was a little unpredictable at times and not in the good way, but overall I just loved how beautiful and charming these characters and their lives were, and just how genuine of a protagonist we had in Scott. He just is trying to figure out who he is through what he thinks is just this magic wand called grit. And so this is the book of my choice. And so that is the breakfast book tag. I'm going to tag two other people. The first one is Books and Violets, and the second one is Books and Boba. There you go. You have been tagged. I hope you enjoyed doing this one. If you enjoyed this video, leave it a like. Comment down below what you would answer for these questions, or if you have some thoughts on some of the answers I gave. Subscribe for videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, and I will see you next time with another video. Bye! Papa, you're making a video.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Should I go up?
Yeah.
For how long?
Just 10 minutes.
Okay. Did you get 200?
No, I don't know. I haven't checked.